Hi, I'm the Intrepid Eater, and today I'm making stinging nettle and ricotta dumplings with roasted cherry tomatoes. Now these dumplings were inspired actually by a New York Times Alison Roman recipe. She cooked them in kind of a spring setting with asparagus and peas, which they do very well with, but since it's summer, I thought I'd do tomatoes with the dish. The nettle I found still had some nice young leaves, and I thought they'd be perfect with these dumplings. So it's going to create a very different, very summery dish. So stinging nettle is an edible plant found across much of the world. It has tiny little stingers all over the stem and leaves, and these stingers act like little hypodermic needles that actually inject chemical compounds into your skin that cause rashes and burning and itching. So you have to be very careful while you're picking it or brushing up close to it, as it will sting you. So definitely if you're going to harvest it, I'd recommend wearing gloves. Once you cook it, however, all those compounds are nullified and it doesn't sting anymore. Cooked nettle tastes a lot like spinach and acts a lot like spinach, and it's a wonderful wild edible to add to your repertoire. It's very easy to work with, very easy to ID, and I recommend going out and trying some yourself. So here I have my bowl of washed nettle leaves. I have a pot of salted boiling water on the go. I'm just going to dump the leaves into the water. Get them all in there, careful not to touch them. I'm just going to boil those for about 3 minutes. We just want to get those stingers deactivated, and we want to wilt it down. So it's been about 3 minutes. I'm going to turn off the water and scoop the nettle leaves out using a little spider strainer here. And that large amount of nettle has now been reduced to a very small amount. Okay, now that we have our nettle ready, we're going to prepare the rest of our ingredients. So we'll start with the ricotta dumplings. We want to take a cup and a half of ricotta cheese. We're going to mix in 2 eggs, the stinging nettle that we cooked, 2 green onions minced, salt, freshly cracked black pepper, and then we're going to take half a cup of flour and gently fold it in. Okay, so we're going to add the ricotta cheese, the nettle, green onions, salt, and freshly cracked black pepper. This is just kosher salt. There we go, into the bowl. We're going to give that a little stir. Make sure it's all incorporated. And then we're going to add our eggs, and we're going to make sure those are mixed very well in the ricotta mixture. We're just going to keep mixing until these are well combined and the nettle and seasonings are incorporated throughout all of it. There we go. Okay, that's all well incorporated. Now we're going to fold in the flour. Now once we're adding the flour, we don't actually want to disturb this mixture too much. We want to gently fold it in and try not to over stir it. So you just want to make sure everything is completely combined, but make sure you're not whipping it all together. You're just gently folding it in, making sure all the flour gets incorporated. Not much more than that. There we go, I think that's good. And from here, we're just going to let that flour hydrate while we prepare the rest of the ingredients. Okay, next up we're going to prepare Salsa Verde. That's going to include some nice olive oil, some capers, anchovies, garlic. Have a nice bunch of basil from the garden, all different types of basil, and some garden fresh mint. So I'll be chopping these and putting them all into the mortar pestle and breaking that down into a nice herbaceous sauce. So first I'll be doing the capers and the anchovies. So we just want about a tablespoon of capers, and we're just going to give those a rough little chop before throwing them into the mortar and pestle here. Next are our anchovies. Capers and anchovies are going to give this salsa verde a funky, salty kick. You won't be able to taste the individual flavors of the anchovies or the capers, but without these in there, it'll definitely be missing something. Just gives a wonderful background flavor to it all. Okay, so those are in. Next we'll do some garlic. And we'll do 3 cloves of garlic. So since we're going to be bashing it up in the mortar and pestle, there's no need to finely chop anything, but I do want to give it a bit of a head start. So I'm just going to take these and smash them like so. Remove the papery skins. And once again, give those kind of just another rough chop. And that will just allow me to save some time using the pestle to break that stuff down. Okay, at this point I want to add a little bit of salt to the mortar, and that will help season the salsa verde, but it will also help break down that garlic in there. Before I add the herbs, I'm just going to go ahead and start bashing it a bit and start breaking down that garlic. It's a lot easier at this stage than after everything else is added in. Okay, that's looking good. Time for the herbs. I'm just going to take these herbs off of the stems. Just pick all those leaves. Same goes for the basil. Okay, so that's all of them. What I'm going to do now is just give these guys a rough chop. And once again, that'll just help start the process of breaking them down before I add them to the mortar and pestle. So I'll chop once that way, chop once that way, just break that all down. I'm going to add that in a little bit at a time, and I'm going to add oil in at the same time, just a little bit at a time. A little bit of oil, and I'm just going to basically start breaking that down, start pounding it in, turning it from a pile of greens into more of a sauce. More, a little bit more oil. I'm just going to repeat that process until they're all in. And I got a nice emulsified sauce rather than separate parts like it is right now. Now you could do this in a food processor or a blender, and that's fine, but you'll never get the same texture and consistency that doing it in a mortar pestle will give you, which is why all the best pestos are made in the mortar and pestle. Is actually where the name comes from. And once you add electricity to it, it just loses something in the process. A little more olive oil. I'm going to keep going at that until everything is completely broken down and emulsified. Okay, after about 5 minutes of bashing this all together, we've got a rich emulsified sauce. There's probably about 3/4 of a cup of olive oil in there and all of our ingredients, and it's just come together to create a rich, beautiful sauce that'll go great with our dumplings. There's way too much for the actual dish, but that's okay. This stuff will keep in the fridge for a while. It's great on roasted potatoes, on rice, on steak, on tofu, roasted vegetables. It's a very versatile sauce that you can use pretty much anywhere in your cooking. Next up is our yogurt and lemon sauce. So first, what I'm going to do is take my trusty zester, something everyone should have. If you don't have one, you could use a rasp, or you can even use a vegetable peeler and chop the zest up. But I find this little tool works wonders. What I'm going to do is just take the zester with this lemon here and zest it all up, and I'm going to put that aside for later on, and I'm going to dress the dumplings with it. So I'll set that aside. Now for the actual lemon yogurt, first I'm going to take a lemon and cut it in half. Using my fingers to catch the seeds, I'm just going to juice half of the lemon. I'm going to add some just plain yogurt to it. I don't want to use Greek yogurt in this case because I want it to be a little thinner in consistency. Greek yogurt tends to be quite thick. So I'm doing about 3/4 cup or so of lemon juice. Maybe I'll use a fork here to just combine that. So I'm just going to gently whip it up and completely combine the lemon juice into the yogurt. And then I'm going to set that aside and use that in the final dish. Next up, I have a slice of thick cut bacon here. I'm going to cut that into matchsticks and I'm going to fry that up. And what that's going to do is going to season the dumplings with crunchy, salty little bacon matchsticks. We don't want it to overpower, we don't want a lot of bacon, but we do want it just to be mingling with the tomatoes and the dumplings, and it's going to make for some nice contrast. You could easily use pancetta or prosciutto in this case as well. They would be equally as good. But I have some nice bacon here, so I'm going to be using that. We're just going to throw this into the cast iron frying pan and fry these down until they're crispy. Okay, those are looking pretty done. They're nice and crispy. I'm going to turn the heat off and transfer them to a paper towel so they can drain. And you don't want to throw away this bacon fat just yet, because we're going to be using a little bit of it later on to pan roast our tomatoes. Okay, our dumpling batter has been sitting for over half an hour while we prepare the rest of our ingredients. It's nice and hydrated, the flour has absorbed all of that egg and all the liquid, and it's ready to be cooked. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring a pot of water to the boil, salt the water, and then we're going to drop spoonfuls of the dumpling mixture into the boiling water, which will create nice dumplings. The dumplings will likely float to the top, and they'll be done in approximately 5 or 6 minutes. And it's been about 5 minutes or so. So I'm going to gently take these out of the water, let them drain and transfer them gently once again over to a plate. Once they're all out, I'll add some more dumplings in and repeat this process. So while the last of the dumplings are cooking, I have these wonderful little cherry tomatoes I picked out of my garden. I'm going to add them to the pan that we fried the bacon in. I've removed a little bit of the fat, so I don't need all of it. I'm just going to cook those down until they're nice and blistered and roasty. We don't want to cook them down into sauce, but just enough so that their skins start to shrivel a little bit and they develop some color. Okay, so the dumplings are all finished. These tomatoes are looking great. They're blistered, a little bit charred, but they haven't broken down into a sauce yet. So I'll transfer those out and we'll start plating. Okay, so we have everything ready now. We have our roasted tomatoes, the bacon, the yogurt sauce, the salsa verde, the lemon zest. I also have some chili oil, which I think will go really nice with it, and a couple nasturtium flowers, because flowers just make everything prettier. So I'm just going to plate this up now. I'm going to take some of the dumplings and gently just put them onto the serving platter. I've transferred the yogurt sauce into the squeeze bottle, which are super handy. They're not necessary at all, but they allow me to make little pools of sauce on a platter, or you can fill them with oil. They're very handy to have around. Okay. Put some tomatoes. And my bacon bits. Those will just be scattered across. Salsa Verde. I just want to drop this into nice pools in between the dumplings. Give everything a spritz with the chili oil. Drape over some of our beautiful lemon zest. Bit more of the yogurt sauce. And last but not least, we have our nasturtiums. And there we have it, stinging nettle ricotta dumplings with roasted tomatoes, salsa verde, and a lemon yogurt sauce. So moment of truth, it's time to taste our creation here. So I'm just going to take a dumpling and try to get a little bit of everything. Oh, it's delicious. You get the saltiness and the richness of that salsa verde, the acid of the tomatoes, a little more acid from the yogurt and the lemon, and that all helps to cut through that ricotta cheese and the nettle. It's just, it's a lovely dish. There's so much happening, it's so delicious, and I hope you guys try it out yourselves. It's wonderful. Once again, I'm Adam the Intrepid Eater. If you're hungry for more, like and subscribe, follow me on Facebook and Instagram. See you next time.